Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you everybody for coming. This is our second informational meeting. Sorry if I'm too loud. My name is Kathy Patrick, and a group of us formed Don't Mess with Madison last year in the fall after learning about this governance transition. We went to some of the public presentations. They were very one-sided, and so we thought it was important for us to try to get a different viewpoint out to the public. I will go ahead and start with opening prayer. Our agenda is up here. We're going to have 3 speakers, and Beth is going to talk about the current form versus the current form, which is mayor council versus city manager. Tiffany's going to talk about why this transition is not needed. And then Bob is going to talk about just overview of city manager governments in the state and around the country. And then we'll have a short Q&A at the end. So if you would, please stand with me and we'll say a prayer. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for your love and for your grace. Thank you for being with us. Lord, help all the speakers communicate what we came to present, Lord, and protect everybody that's here and help everybody get home safely as they travel home. Help this community come together and make the right decision for Madison. Ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I'll hand it over to Beth. Okay.
Hi, I'm Beth Namati. I'm a wife, mom, homeowner, and small business owner here in Madison, and I'm an officer of the PAC. We had to have a PAC to be able to have a campaign. And so the question before us is, the question before us is, do we want a mayor council or a council manager? I'm going to describe and comment on the 2 forms. By the way, the city website has a short description, but they missed something very important there that I'm going to highlight. And it starts with a V and ends with Ito. So we have 2 graphics that have been helpful. This one is the current system, the mayor-council form of city government. We have 1 mayor for all the city, of course. He's the CEO, acts as the CEO, and has the help of the city administrator and a staff. And then we have department heads who execute, implement all the things that need to be done. They may plan and present projects, ordinances, and initiatives. And the city will, the council has 7 districts, 1 member for each district, and so everybody in that district votes for their council member. And when there are things coming up for a vote, as they do every meeting, the council votes. Since there are 7 members, that's designed so they don't have a tie, so 4 out of 7 passes, but I think lately in our experience it tends to be unanimous. And the department heads seem to generate a lot of the things that get voted on. The mayor does not vote, but the mayor has a veto. The council can override his veto with a 2/3 vote. And so in the system you have key leaders, the council and the mayor accountable to the voters. Okay, next. So this form is patterned after our American constitutional form of government, a legislative branch and an executive branch. These form two opposing powers that can act contrary to each other. So the mayor can act counter to the council. And that's important because they have both of those arms can answer to the voters. And so I'm going to be emphasizing that they're two opposing powers and can counteract. They slow each other down, and we refer to that sometimes as checks and balances. A check is something that slows things down. So the mayor can slow down bad ideas the council has, and the council can slow down bad ideas the mayor has. So the two branches act as separation of power. And as I mentioned, the executive, the mayor, implements laws or executes the laws, or you might say enforces the laws. The council makes the laws, so that's the legislative branch. Legislative refers to laws. The mayor is elected by everybody, and the council, as I mentioned, is elected by district. So, and again, it's like the federal government, a system of checks and balances. The separation of power protects voters' interests. And here's why you need that separation of power spread out. A district, say one of the council districts wants something for itself, like a marble-hulled new school for their children, because they have a lot of young families and they want it nice, so they want marble walls and golden fixtures. And then that councilman makes the deal with the next guy who represents a district with older people who don't have school-age children, but they want a senior center with marble hallways and golden fixtures in their spa. And so they might make a deal, well, you vote for my thing and I'll vote for your thing. And then they get some momentum with all the districts and they all decide to vote for each other's lavish projects. Then you're finding the budget is ratcheting itself up. And we're spending a lot of money. So what's the check on that? Well, we go to the polls to elect our guy, our representative, our councilman, but what's the check if all the councilmen are doing this? And then, you might ask them and they'll say, well, I'm just one guy voting and out of 7, and I did get you this nice thing, isn't that great? What we want is for the mayor to be the one looking at the city not going out of control like that, not spiraling out of control. Everybody can go to the mayor and say, why aren't you vetoing this excessive spending? We can hold him accountable. So you don't want all that power concentrated in a few hands, even if it's just the city council's hands with multiple people. You want these branches in opposition to each other, so they're not just rubber stamping everything. So here's a change we're being offered. The city manager, it's called the council manager form of government. The mayor, notice, has scooted over here. He's not here anymore. He becomes the council president, so he's sort of a super council member, but he's not that super because he still gets one vote just like the council. He doesn't get to veto anymore. He's at large, which means the whole city still votes for the mayor. So now notice we have 7 council members, but now we've shrunk to 6 council districts, so we're losing a district. They're going to redraw districts. They had to do that anyway for the census, but they've been holding off. It's mid-2023 now. They've been holding off until they see if they have to do it for this anyway. So we're going to have 6 districts. We've lost a district, so we have a little less representation from that. And the big loss of representation is here, where the head of the executive is no longer accountable to the voters. The city manager gets appointed by the city council, and the city manager is the one now running the department heads, guiding the ideas, coming up with all the day-to-day business of the city. The mayor has lost his veto, I think I mentioned that. And so the power shift is that you might say the executive has become an arm of the legislative. No longer are they two separate branches. Now the executive has become the implementation arm of the legislative. So who would be accountable to the people for the overall well-being of the city? You don't have that mayor that ideally would do that. The mayor has been elected by everybody, but now the mayor would say, well, I'm just one vote in 7. I can't veto. And the whole council, including the mayor, might say, well, we have an expert now. We have a professionally trained, credentialed city manager, and he's recommended this, that, and the other thing that we should do. The legislators that we have access to and who answer to us can then refer to the expert, the professional. They hired the professional. The professional would make decisions about the policies of the city. So here's why I would submit that we should not have an unelected expert in charge of the city. Let's talk about the politician versus the expert. Politicians are some of the least trusted people as far as a job category. But let's talk about what they could be if it was a noble calling, which it is. A politician's calling is to balance various competing interests. The politician is not going to create a perfect system for us. That's not possible, and obviously it's not the politician's job. There's no formula for how to make a city run well. You could study how to do it and how other people have done it, but people are all different, and every community is different. There are different needs, different combinations of kinds of work people do and kinds of situations, family situations. Like Florida has a lot of retirees. Silicon Valley might have a lot of young, unmarried professionals. Those are very different communities. So in Madison, what we would have is we have government employees, we have contract employees, we have the self-employed, we have tech, we have retail, we have young families, we have retirees. And when you have, as I mentioned before, young families that need schools, they have different interests than the retirees that don't have a need for schools, but the retiree is going to be very conscious of keeping their personal budget under control. So they're not going to be wanting to have their taxes go up. So being a politician it's not possible to do it, to be an expert on politics. You need a person who can balance people, understand the community, balance all their interests. You don't need, and you can't have an expert. There's no such thing as an expert. An expert is somebody who can learn how to build roads or how to do water management more efficiently. We do need experts, but not as key leaders. And our experts can't be beyond question because, today's technical breakthrough might be tomorrow's thing that we kind of laugh at how primitive it was. I would submit that elected officials must be the ones responsible for the decisions that affect voters. People used to say the buck stops here. So we need our politicians to be the ones who own the decisions that affect us. And as we wind down here, I'll just highlight why separation of power is good. No one cares for the voter's interest as much as the voter does. So our system needs to protect the welfare of the voter and not be vulnerable to corruption. Consolidating power will increase the danger of corruption. When we think of the structure of the government, not who's particularly there right now or imminently or whatever, but just thinking about how the setup is. If I wanted to find an environment where I might get some grift, I could mismanage some funds and have some fun with them. Or if I had an agenda that was not popular with people, but I really wanted to implement it. Or if I had darker schemes and wanted to subvert and control people, which has happened in the history of the world. For any of these things, I would eliminate people's power to elect their leaders. The less power the voters have, the more you have a closed system that protects itself from being accountable. You might have some very good individuals in your system, but it's not because of that system, it's in spite of it. Shady people will look for closed systems to go into and exploit. And having a separation of power is one way to guard us from that. Okay. So to summarize, our current system preserves our right to vote for both executive and legislative leaders. Our current system preserves the opposing forces of the executive and legislative branches. It preserves the one executive who answers to the voters for the well-being of the entire city. And it preserves the mayor as the elected politician who optimizes our various interests. So that is why we urge you to please go on May 9th, go to your polling place, and please vote no. Thank you. Next one. So here's Tiffany.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Knox. I am a mom, a small business owner, and a homeschooling parent. The big question a lot of you are here to have answered is probably, why change? Here's a short news clip that answers the question, Madison forward. This is Terry Johnson.
Think about making this change is not when something is broken, not when you realize something has fallen apart, but to be proactive and make sure that we're always having the best form of government for our residents.
She essentially just admitted that we don't actually need the change. One thing to keep in mind is that even Alabama's largest cities don't have city managers. This includes Montgomery, Birmingham, Mobile, even Hoover, which is more comparable in size to us. Being proactive and having a city manager to manage our growth is one of the arguments. Did you know that Madison is actually landlocked by Huntsville City, which means our growth is limited? So at some point, we're going to run out of land to build. So having somebody to manage the growth isn't really a good excuse. So one thing that Beth had mentioned briefly was that we already have a city administrator, which acts as an assistant to the mayor. This is a position where we can hire a credentialed professional to do all the things that they want to fundamentally change our structure of government in order to bring in a professional. So why don't we just hire somebody who's better than what we already have if we're not pleased with how things are going? Since the mayor is the person who hires the city administrator, and I believe the council has to approve them, if we don't think that the mayor did a good job picking, we can always just pick a new mayor who would also pick a new administrator. And to reiterate, there's just no need to fundamentally change the entire structure of the government. We already have everything we need. Okay. Continuity can still happen under our current form. If the people like the direction we're headed in, we leave the choice to the people. If we like what they're doing, just vote them in again. Okay, so here's a list of things that Madison Forward has put on their website as reasons why they think that city manager is the best thing for Madison. They claim it will bring more continuity, increase effectiveness, prepare Madison for the future, return investments, enhance accountability, and they even claim that it would be better for Madison City school system because it would allow Madison to engage in more strategic long-term planning. Continuity allows long-term goals to go forward regardless of popularity with the community. The kind of continuity that Madison Forward is seeking is continuity of their vision for Madison despite what the people want. Having a city manager, it's harder to remove a city manager because the council has to do that. The majority of the council has to vote in order to fire a city manager. So if the citizens are unhappy with the direction that we're headed, we have to petition and convince 4 or more of our council members to vote in that direction, which may be tricky. And if they refuse, then we have to replace 4 or more of our council members in the next election in order to get people that would do our bidding. And we know how election promises end up sometimes. Yeah, so if we want continuity, we just re-elect them. Increases effectiveness. A trained professional to run the city. Again, we can put that trained professional in the city administrator's position. No need to create an entirely new bureaucrat. That would be nearly impossible to remove just to bring in a professional. The law also does not guarantee or require that the council hire a trained or certified city manager. It does encourage them to take those things into consideration, but it is not legally required. And when has more government ever led to more effectiveness?
Never in the history of the universe.
Okay. Prepares Madison for the future. Just because we're growing doesn't mean we need to change our form of government. As I mentioned, we're landlocked. We don't have a lot of room to grow. And all the cities bigger than us, I think there's one that's bigger than us that has a city manager. But if they don't have one, why do we need one? And one thing that was mentioned in the work session that they had regarding city manager, I believe it was in December, is that they're going to have to reword every single law that mentions the mayor and change the wording to city manager instead of mayor, which will consume immense resources while we transition. This is a screenshot from Madison Forward's website. It tells you exactly what their vision is for Madison, and they even have a link to the comprehensive plan, which is called Madison on Track 2045. Go ahead. It's also on the city website. And a quick quote from Madison Forward. Having a city manager would give the city a better chance at realizing long-term goals without the interference of politics.
Without the interference of people.
Without the interference of the voter.
Those dang voters getting away with it.
I know, how dare the people have a voice?
Except for the apathetic ones that don't do anything.
True, but you know what? That's why we're here. We're trying to increase civic engagement. Okay, the next argument is that it would bring returns on investment. Who's the investor? Is it you? Is it me? What are they hoping to get returns on? Who's going to benefit from that? Madison is a community, not a business. In a business, your primary concern is making money.
Aren't there a lot of big business interests behind this, like Committee of 100, that are interested in making a lot of business off of, or a lot of money off of this change of city government?
Yes, one of the members of the Governance Transition Committee is a member of Huntsville 100. If you're interested in learning more about that, there's an article on our website written by yours truly about some of the conflict of interest in regards to this transition. I'm not going to get into that here though.
Ask questions at the end.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay, so yeah, running more like a business, that should, which they say would take the politics out of it, but really that just means it would take the voter out of it. You can't take the politics out of politics. Even if we have an appointed official running our city, that person would still have their interests that they would be serving in regards to city elites, stakeholders, as they like to be called, whoever that may be. Okay. Enhances accountability. The city manager would be appointed by the city council and mayor. I'm not sure how that increases accountability because the city manager would not be directly accountable to the voters. They make the argument that, well, you still elect the city council people and they control the city manager. But did you know there's actually a part of the law that says that a city council person cannot give past judgment, good or bad, on any of the department heads or any of the people that work under the city manager. It's actually a Class C misdemeanor if they do. And if they violate twice, they lose their office. Does that sound like they control the city manager? So the system allows finger pointing and the blame game and plausible deniability, because then the city manager can do as they please. The city council will say, well, it was their choice, and vice versa. And only the council is held accountable by the voters. So, another thing about the law, it says that their term is indefinite.
Yeah, I just read that.
Yeah.
And their salary for both now the mayor and this individual is undefined.
Yeah, please keep comments and questions till the end.
Thank you.
Okay, and then a quote from Sam Gaston. He says voter participation is lower under a city manager form of government as opposed to mayor council, probably because the voters don't feel like they have a voice anymore, so why vote? So here is a little bit about Madison on Track 2045. Hold on, I have notes about this. If you haven't read it yet, I highly suggest you go take a peek. There's lots of really interesting ideas in it that you may or may not like. It's all about smart growth and smart development, increasing density, higher density housing, build to rent, and interestingly enough, There is no discussion about solutions for traffic and infrastructure other than ways to get Madison to stop driving their cars quite so much. It even suggests adding more walkable space by reducing lane width. It also cites in this document what I said about Madison being landlocked. So yeah, definitely go read that. It's a 82-page document. The last 15 pages or so is about Madison's future. Go ahead. Okay, so one of the organizations that credentializes city managers is ICMA, International City County Management Association. This is another website that you should go take a peek at. Here's a little screenshot where it talks about how power is centralized in the legislative body and how their focus will be on community growth and sustainability, which you may or may not like. Okay, their last argument is that this would be better for the schools because they can engage in long-term strategic planning with the city. But we've already been doing that in Madison. In the last 10 years, we've built a new elementary school, a new middle school, and a new high school. And we have a new elementary school on the west side that just got approved as well. Okay, to summarize, we don't need a change because Madison residents deserve to maintain their vote and their voice. The only reason I can see to fundamentally change the government structure is to take the voter out of the equation. We have already established long-term plans and have been implementing them great. If we want to have those things continue, we just elect the same officials again. And again, the cities larger than us in Alabama do not have city managers. Go ahead. Okay, and that's the end of my speech. Turn the time over to Bill.
Okay, thank you, Tiffany. I see some familiar faces. How many people were here the last time we met? Raise your hand, please. Okay, great. Just bear with me. I'm going to go over some of the stuff that we had before for the new folks, and I've added some new slides. So, wanted to put together a brief history. I'm a guy that moved here about 13 years ago, so it was interesting for me to find out about this George Berry. He's not here. Thank you for putting this together. 1963, there were 1,450 people. That was 60 years ago. It's hard to believe that we're up to 60,000. And in 1981, they had a form of city manager. They called it a planner. He did essentially the same thing that what they're proposing now. And he was basically fired, and they voted to recall the city manager and the mayor at that time. 1988, we grew to 7,500 people. And it's at the time that the feds forced a change for the commissioner type form of government to city council. And that's when they went from 5 to 7 districts. And part of the lawsuit that was filed against Madison was to form a minority district. And that's how we ended up with District 4, I believe. 1990s, Huntsville tries to annex debt-free Madison, and the citizens said, no, we don't want any part of that. 93, we're up to 17,000 people, and Madison votes to separate from the county school district and form their own, and that's how we ended up where we are today. 2015, interesting enough, we were at 50,000 people, and they tried to get a city manager in. It was backed by some politicians and real estate brokers. The mayor at that time vetoed it and nixed it, and it died. And then between 21 and 23, we're grown around 59 to 60,000 people. The mayor and outside forces are trying to initiate the same movement for the city manager. Okay, so being an engineer, I wanted to see the big picture. I just didn't want to focus on Madison, and I did some research to find out how many city managers are in the United States. So in my research, I found out that in the US, there are 19,500 cities and incorporated cities and towns, and there are about 900 of them, which is about 4.5% to 5%. I could not get an exact number, so it was a compilation of several sources, and I estimated it to be 900. So don't hold me to the exact number on that. Okay, so what is Alabama? Alabama has 462 incorporated cities and towns, and there are only 16 city managers, and that's about 3.4%, less than the national average. And 6 of the city managers, 6 of the 16 have more than one. They have more than one assistant. Okay, so looking at the list of the towns, the spreadsheet on the list represents the number of the 462 incorporated cities and towns, and they go from 217th, wrong button, go to 217, Huntsville being the largest, and all the way down to 14 people in the smallest of them. And then I said, okay, where is Madison on this big list? So I sorted on population from the largest to the smallest, and you can see that Madison, with 58,000 at the time that this was created, is number 9. We're up to 60,000. So I wanted to say, all right, let's look at a band around Madison and see how many people in that band there. So I took 20, the yellow represents a 20% plus increase and a 20% minus from the 58,000. And you can see that there are 5 city managers, and 2 of them in that brand there have an assistant. So pay attention to Dothan, which is very close to us with 71,000. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit here. Looking at my bullets on the right. Interesting fact here is that you'll notice up here in the largest cities than Madison, and the bunch of them down below, which extends to 3 or 4 pages, they don't have a lot of number of city managers there. And so I asked myself, why is that? And I can only come up with 2 reasons. One, they can't afford it, they're too small, their budgets are too small, or they don't want them. So I don't know if there's any other ones you may want to think about. And that's all I had to say about this. Moving on. I also did a search and say, okay, how many city managers were trying to be fired or they're having problems with it? And it didn't take me long to come up with 37 hits that were either fired, charged, excuse me, or removed. Charged, there were lawsuits for embezzling funds, federal crime, yes. And then I said, okay, let's do one for Alabama, and I came up with problems in Pelham, Dothan, Anniston, and Fairhope. Fairhope rejected initiatives twice in 2018 and 2022. And again, I want to talk about Dothan here. All right, so a summary of the data that we just saw, and this is my last slide that I presented before, is city managers are not the norm here, but it seems to be a push in that direction. There is a concerted effort across the United States to institute city managers in many other cities. Alabama has slightly less than the average of the other 49 states. And then the information I thought was very interesting is when hiring a city manager, many cities ended up with one or more assistants. It wasn't just a city manager. An example was Tallahassee in Florida. They just reorganized, I think in the last 6 months, and they ended up hiring 5 assistants to the one city manager that runs it. Now, in all fairness, Tallahassee has 196,000 residents. That's 4 times our size. But if you want to do the math, being an engineer, I can't help myself. If you do the math and divide 60,000 into 196, that means that we could end up with 1 to 2 assistants. Just that's what the numbers say. Okay, I'd say that I will talk about Dothan here. Kathy came and did some research for me, and we checked into the city of Dothan. They have a city manager that earns $190,000 a year. And remember, Dothan is just 70,000 people. He's just about our size there. He gets $700 a month for monthly auto allowance, $1,250 for housing, $250,000 life insurance policy. I'm not gonna hold that against us because most people get life insurance in their work. So this is just the facts, it's not a criticism. There was unknown moving expenses for him to get there. Membership and retirement systems for Alabama, long-term disability, and health insurance. So when you add all those up and estimate it, it costs the city between $225,000 and $250,000 a year for one city manager. So then within the last 6 months, 11 department heads and the city manager requested a city manager assistant, OG. And then they voted for it. The assistant manager was hired. He gets $156,000, $500 monthly auto allowance. When you add that cost to the city, in addition to the city manager, you're talking $415,000 a year. That's nearly $500,000. We could end up with that too, and it's basically the same set of requirements for those folks. Okay, I'm gonna hand this back to Kathy real quick.
Okay, so here's a bunch of dates that are very important, so leading up to the election date. So tomorrow is the first day for absentee ballot applications. If you know you're not gonna be here on May the 9th, please go and get an absentee application. April 24th is the first day. I guess they're gonna test the vote machines. Let's see. So May the 2nd is the last day to receive absentee application by mail. And I just copied this from the city's website. So if you don't find this, this is on the city's website. And then May the 8th, last day for a voter to apply and submit an emergency ballot. And then election day is going to be on May the 9th from normal. And on the city's website, we also have this information, I believe on our website, is all of this election information is on our website. Everybody should have gotten a flyer in their chair. Our website is on that flyer, and we have more flyers in the back for anybody who wants to, give some to their neighbors. So the ballot language, again, this is on the city's website, just for your information. So we are going to be voting no. Voting no means keeping the mayor council government as it is. Okay, and then, we could use your support. We're just grassroots people. Like Beth said, we had to form a PAC in order to campaign. So we've got some yard signs here. We need volunteers. We're really just trying to ramp up our door-to-door efforts and getting the word out in the community. So we think Facebook, we've kind of gotten the word talking with people just around town. People know that this election is happening, but they don't really know all the details. So Susan Pierce is with the RWM group. They are going to be having a forum next Tuesday. And she's got some information about that. The forum's going to be at Bob Jones cafeteria, and that's going to be different from this style meeting. There'll actually be two people from both sides answering question about it. So you'll get, and if any of you know Boy Scouts, my husband's a Boy Scout, they have a badge that they can get if they go to one of these types of forums. And then we're going to have another meeting here May the 1st. So that's the Monday before the election. And we may cover some new material, but some of it will probably be the same. Donations, we have to pay for this room. We're trying to get money raised for mailers so we can send out informational cards to voters the week before the election. and remember to vote. And so we're kind of at the end. If you guys could, please give a round of applause for our speakers. And then I'll ask the speakers come up so that we can kind of do a question and answer. I'm gonna hand the microphone over to Bob, but I ask if you just raise your hand, we'll do one question at a time, and we'll just go from there.
Okay, please, just a question, think about what you want to ask us, and we ask that if any discussions you hold until after the meeting. I know you're excited about it, but let's hold off on that. And the young lady there.
Mine's not a question, it was just an observation. When you put that list of dates up, I thought, oh wow, we can go home tonight and register to vote. No, yesterday was the last day to register.
Oh, is that
So
right?
we can't get anybody registered to vote.
Thank you for pointing that out.
That's not correct, it's the 24th. April 24th is the last day of registration.
Yes, sir, in the back standing.
It said April 9th.
For residency.
That's to establish residency, to make sure you're living.
Oh,
you have
okay,
residency.
okay. I read it wrong.
Yeah.
Last day to establish residency.
And if I will, I'm sorry, that's actually an outdated, I've spoken to them and they've updated it.
Okay.
Because it says application and ballots available online. You can't get a ballot online, that's only available in person. So people understand, like you get a ballot in person, but you can't like apply for your, like get a ballot online.
Okay, great information. Thanks for that update there. All right, we have a gentleman in the back.
Yeah, so I ran the math on it, like you were talking about, y'all are losing one of your elected councilmen to one of your districts, and your councilmen are going from 7 to 6, correct?
Yes.
So that means that you're losing exactly 14.2% of your vote. Your vote is being diluted by that number. I don't know if y'all thought about putting in a percentage form, but that's the exact amount of vote that you're losing in terms of representation. And I didn't know if y'all wanted to put that on the slides.
So are you a mathematician or an
I'm
engineer?
an accountant.
Okay, there you go. I kind of thought that. All right, we have, yes, sir, back there.
Thank you for doing this, very much appreciated. My question is, I haven't seen many signs along the road. Are you planning to do anything for visibility for traffic? I think,
Well, you guys can answer that one.
So that's a really good question. So we have some larger banners that we can put up. If it's a business, we have to pay a permit. There's a $50 permit. If it's a person's home, if it's a residence, then it's free. But we've already been hassled by the city about it, and letters were sent out, and then we had to go and somebody had to go and call and say, no, these did not require a permit because they were less than 12 square feet. So we have a volunteer who's put them up in the roadways, and depending on where you put them, the code enforcement will come and pick them up, because if it's in an easement or just along, random property, it's not allowed.
can a volunteer stand with a sign somewhere?
Yes, we are having sign waves. Please go to our website and sign up for email updates. So we have had a few sign waves. I should have said that already, but definitely go to our website or sign up with your email. We're sending out weekly updates. We've had 2 or 3 sign waves, and so you're welcome to come and join us or suggest a time. And
I'll be there.
okay, thank you.
All right, we got 2 hands. Let's go to the gentleman in front, please, real quick.
Mine's 2-part. Number one, a caveat onto the signs. Many of us in here live in HOAs. You better check your HOA rules. My HOA does not allow signs of any kind, to include political signs. Ask me how I know. I've been written up twice, in the 2022 election. And then part number 2, where is the money for the opposition coming from? Where is the money coming from?
Hey, you wanna, unlike that, there you go.
So Madison Forward did file with the Secretary of State at the end of March but they did not raise any money in March. But the donations that I have seen from the school board effort, the raising our property taxes for the schools, which was also initiated by Madison Forward, they had lots of big business donations. Not necessarily in big dollar amounts, but you would recognize some of the names for sure.
Where I went in there, because when I went to the opposition website and looked it up, it said, go here, here's our budget. So I couldn't find nothing. All I found was one of their managers or something has a 202 area code. That's Washington, D.C.
Yes, the person who created the PAC does have a DC phone number.
That should tell you a lot right there.
That particular individual is also financially invested in Balcor, the owner of Trash Pandas.
I'm sorry.
You had your hand up again, please.
It seems to me like if you wanna put up a sign, you can ask an individual, or you can ask a business if they will put a sign up, if you could put a sign up on their.
Yes, ma'am, we've done that. And, I'm sorry, one over here. You had your hand up.
I just had a question. Why are you so reluctant? It seems like you're being such kind and considerate people. And that's not the way to roll here. Why are you so reluctant to disclose the powers behind which is clearly a usurpation of voter authority? I mean, why are you playing so kid-gloved?
Go ahead.
Do you want to win?
Yes.
Absolutely, we do. Just as much as I want to name drop, I'm not going to at this moment. Like I mentioned earlier, I have a whole article on our webpage that has all the names. I don't have the information about donors on there. I suppose I could add that. The only one that is coming to mind right now is Murphy Homes. They donated to Madison Forward in the past, not necessarily for this initiative.
And I'll say two of the names because this was in the I Vote Madison debate that was held last year, a Zoom debate. Al Sullivan was one of the people who spoke on behalf, and he mentioned John Allen, and they tried this in 2015. And so Alan Sullivan is one of the public faces. The co-chairs of Madison Forward, they've been in the news, as Terry Johnson and Jim Ross. So those are the public. Mark Jacobson has also spoken on behalf of Madison Forward.
Okay, lady in back there, please.
Just have a quick question to clarify. It sounds like we're going from 7 districts to 6 regardless. Is that correct?
No, that's not.
They're gonna redistrict because of the increase there, but the decision on the city manager will affect that proceeding.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I want the gentleman back there about the accounting and so forth. I think something y'all need to put out to make sure people are aware of it is how much this is gonna cost the city of Madison. Because if the mayor is going to be a city council, and I know they say he's gonna be the focus of the head of it, but if he's only doing council work, then perhaps that salary doesn't be the same. Plus the fact, I think people out there need to know how much this is going to cost. Because I don't know about you folks, but my taxes, I've been here since 1968, and my taxes go up on my house every year.
And that's mostly because of the bonds, but to get back to the financing thing, there was talk, and it's only talk, that if the functions and responsibility of the mayor would decrease by going to the council, that his salary should be reduced and reevaluated, but there's no guarantee. And then as far as the projected cost, nothing has been published, but we can only use what we use up there to show you what other cities are costing. And that gives you a good idea. Yes, sir.
Well, on the topic of money, you don't mention enough about the money. You should keep track of where is the tax money going to be handled under this system. It's all at the city council. So you have no check and balance on the money. So the people that write the budget are the people that budget and are the people that inspect the execution of the budget. So you now have no diversity in the handling of public money. Public money is all tied into the council.
That is true. In fact, I just looked that up to meet with Greg Shaw. And I encourage everybody to go on their website and look at the fiscal year reports and the revenue and finances. And it's an eye opener. For instance, this year, they're proposing a budget that's 10 or 15% more than they have in revenue. They're overspending just like the federal government.
But there's nobody to check that because the mayor can't veto it. So the city council gets away with it. They can put us in debt in 2 years and there's nothing we can do about it.
That's a problem, and we need to go up there and voice our opinion.
The other second point that she mentioned is we say that the mayor is going to be the president of the council. Why is that true? Just because they say it doesn't make it true. It has to be voted on by the council. They do not have to vote him the head of the council.
That's just what the Council Manager Act says. It says, that's what the Council Manager Act says, that sorry.
But it has to be voted on.
Well, not according to this Council Manager Act. So in the Council Manager Act, it states that the mayor will become the president of the council. So now currently, the council votes for their president every so often, but that won't happen under the Council Manager Act. So
you said all the local laws talking about the mayor are gonna have to be changed to be city manager, but is that gonna be something that has to be voted on by is that just a boilerplate thing and they pass it themselves, or is it gonna require yet another constitutional amendment that gets voted on by everybody in the state, like everything else seems to be? Every time we have an election, it's like some local issue. I have to vote on, Nowhereville, Alabama's, they get a drive-in movie.
yeah, the way it was described was the city administrator brought this up at a work session that all of the ordinance would have to be changed. And so it seems like they're gonna do it, 20 or so every meeting. I think the council has to vote on all of those changes, is my understanding.
I'm a latecomer into this. Thank you very much for putting the information out. I thought I was informed and I'm finding out I'm not, and I know a lot of people aren't. So we only got a month to spread the news. Secondly, when I heard that the mayor is for this, that right away my antennas went up. As a registered nurse, I would have appreciated if he put the information out and let the people decide, and just stay out of his opinion. So thank you for doing that, and whatever we can do to help you guys,
Thank you. We'll go to Margie.
I just wanted to make 2 comments. Number one, when you go to monster.com and you look up a city manager and the template, it states clearly, city managers are for the population between 200,000 and 2 million. And what they're doing is they're bringing this to us, a 60,000 population town, but they're giving the salary for $250,000 to 2 million city. So they're going by the national average salary when they say 6 figures. So it's very deceiving what they're doing to us, in my opinion. The second thing I wanted to bring up was about the signs. I just came from the council meeting. I speak at every council meeting. I was told I put 91 signs out. Now, I didn't put any in easements, and that they pulled them all up this weekend. That's what I was told, just at the council. 91 signs.
They pulled them?
They pulled 91 signs.
Since statistically it's better to convert voters by knocking door to door than it is by calling or mail, is there a way to onboard if you want to be a door knocker right now with anyone up there? Because that's the best way to convert voters.
If you want to go door to door, please come and talk to me after the meeting, and I will set you up in I-360, and we'll. Yeah, and there's a sign-up sheet that what we're doing for the door to door, we're using an app. It's called I-360. It makes it very easy for people to go out and do door to door. But please sign up or feel free to talk to me afterwards.
So most of us have probably seen the Blues Brothers, right? You get the big speaker on top of the car, and they drive the neighborhoods, and they just start announcing stuff. I mean, is there anything that would stop us from doing that?
Noise ordinance.
Well, I mean, so many decibels between certain hours.
Just check on it.
Yeah, okay.
Go for it.
All right.
That would fit nice on your Explorer, wouldn't it?
I was thinking of actually getting, one of the Blues Brothers vehicles. You know, the old beat up police car, the black and white.
Your white
Big speaker on
ambulance,
top.
maybe? We had a question in the back there.
Put the band back together.
Yeah,
This,
mission from God.
Can we get copies of these? I know y'all said, of these slides, I know y'all said that you're on Facebook, but I'm a millennial, I'm on Instagram with a rather large following of almost exclusively Madison people, and I will absolutely start blasting this on
Awesome.
Madison.
We have an Instagram page. I think we have 3 followers, one of which is me. So if you have Instagram, please go follow our page. It's Don't Mess with Madison. I haven't posted there much. I've had trouble gathering traction there. Facebook has been easier.
and I think that we posted the last presentation, that we held here on our website. So it might be easier to post these slides on our website, don't you think?
Yeah, we'll do it on our website as well.
Has there been any, I know they're gonna put out request resumes out soon. Have there been no qualifications placed out as far as educational requirements, experience, that kind of thing?
No, I believe we've been told that none of that will happen until after it's approved.
So it's
So a
basically,
lot of unanswered questions
so
about,
it's basically you have to vote for the bill to find out what's in it. AKA
That's correct.
Nancy Pelosi.
That's.
salary will also depend on negotiating with the candidates. I know there's a city in Alabama that they had an open city manager seat for like over a year because they couldn't find somebody, and they ended up having to hire them for way more than they were hoping just to attract a viable candidate.
So we're running a little over, and we'll take one more question, otherwise we'll have to close for the evening. Okay, none? Rick?
No more comment is addressed, there's been a couple of questions on the number of districts. But it would be good to know that we're in a chess game and you have to look at several moves ahead. 2 or 3 council meetings ago, there was chatter by the council about going not only from 6 districts, but to 4 districts. Not 6, but 4. And there was also discussions of when the again, not in this election cycle, but is going to a staggered council election cycle, so that we don't vote for everybody at one time, we have a staggered schedule. So then if we have a city manager in place, and we have issues with the council trying to get rid of the city manager, and they have a staggered election cycle, it's gonna be even more difficult.
So I'll address that. I don't, so the decision was made when they approved the ballot measure that we were gonna have 6 council districts. So I went back to this slide right here. They made that decision, so that is in the ballot language. So they had discussed that back and forth. And then the committee last year that made the recommendation for changing to council manager, they also evaluated that question you mentioned about rotating council districts. So they unanimously approved that as well, but my understanding is somehow the governor prevented that from happening. I was told that is not something that's being under consideration right now.
Not right now.
But it is, you're right, that's a good point. That's the direction that they're wanting to go, is that's further their goals of continuity,
Something
so.
also to address is the multi-year transition and what that's gonna do to our city government.
Right, we talked about that, with that, thank you all for coming, we really appreciate it.